So this is Tiva Kavanas, as we see as Shara al Shara Kavanas, and we're talking about the ARI, the Kavanas of the ARI on Kriat Shemah. Now it occurs to me that people need to know what Kavanos are. In the spiritual world, the directions of our prayers and our learning are very, very important to reach the right mark. In order to do that, you have to have a Kavana. Lakavein means like really to direct something as personal as appropriate as possible. And these are all meditations that a person can do before he does a mitzvah. So here we're talking about one of the greatest mitzvahs of all time, which is the mitzvah of Kriat Shema. So let's come over and let's read a little bit. And what we've been saying is like this: the Kriat Shema is composed of 6 letters. The second word, which is Yisrael, and the last word, which are a Chod, he says that I use the phrase different times like magic words, but that's really not the right word. These are words which are like buttons, and when you press that button, you say that word. It's like pressing a button, and that automatically causes different events to take place in heaven, which ultimately bring us to what they call mochin, the godless. And we're going to learn about this, and we've been hearing about it, and he said it in lots of different ways, and here we come again. And this let me show you that on the next page, down at the bottom, he's going to have a chart. For those of us who are capable of actually having this Kabbalah, at the time of the particular, these are one, Aleph, these are, well, let's just count them. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 different times that we're going to say the Kriat Shema. Here we say, oh, it's better over here. Karbanos, Yotzer, Arvis, and Shal Hamita. Those are 4 different times we say Kriat Shema. All of them ultimately end up pretty much the same. The difference is where the shefa that comes through the reading of the saying the Kriat Shema has its origin. So let's read over here, and it says Achiluk Hashlishi. So he says there's a third differentiation. Who gam came b'milas echad. When you get to that final word of the Shema, who kigavar bi'arda b'kriyat Shema the Yotzes. So now let's talk about where. Let's find out where we're at. I'm not sure. When we talk about the Kriyat Shema the Yotzer, so let's go over this. What is happening here? So there is a tipa in Chochmah. This tipa travels through Chochmah as he's about to say. So after you stream the Chavayach and Niskaris. So what is the Chavayah? It's a 72. It's the Chavayah of Av, I guess. Shahu tipa zera the Abba Kaniskar, which is the drop of seed that comes from Abba, that contains the DNA of the Ein Sof Baruch. So then after that, you have to have this Kabbalah. So what happens is the tipa itself becomes formed up, this tipa, in the womb of Ima, which is Bina. So now you have Chochmah with the tipa that is planted into Ima. And ultimately this produces 4 mochin, and the 4 mochin come into Zer Anpin. Because Zer Anpin, here we see that the tipa now is divided into 4 different mochin. Commotion is Boyer, as we are explaining, or we will explain. Now, what do they call? This now we're no longer dealing with the concept of katnas. Katnas is of all the things that bother us, all the things that we need, all the things we need to pray for. We have to bring that to our consciousness before we could really pray properly. So he said, but ultimately the mochin that come into Zer Anpin are an aspect of godless, which is expanded consciousness or expanded contact with the divine. So this is what we're going for. Kanizker Sham, and let's read the Tiva Kavanos on this. It starts right here, a number I and Ches. Am I right? I am right. So let's see what he says, and let me see if I can get it lined up. He says, Achilok Hashlishi, Sheesh Ba'arba B'mini Kriat Shema, that you find in the 4 different kinds of Kriat Shema, who Gam came B'tevis Echad. So we understand that the button called echad has, now we have two different kinds of things that it does. Kama chiluk hasheni, just like the first chiluk, raka chiluk hasheni, hoya the gabe abba, that really referred to what was going on with abba, that is the development of the seed. And there we're concerned about where does the drop, the seed, the tzorach mochin that will spread and become the mochin for zer anpin. Where does it start? That was the first. That was the first chiluk. So excuse me. I guess that was the second chiluk. But the chiluk, the third one, is with zer anpin himself. Who talui b'tevis Yisrael, and it really depends on the use of the word Yisrael. When you say the word Yisrael, and that's what we said before, it is the first button of the Kriat Shemah. So when you say that word, that is the pushing of the button. So he said, "V'ku talui b'tevis Yisrael shahara gatipa shehi shem avanav," which we mentioned before, which is Yud Vav Dalet K Yud Vav Yud Vav K Yud. Gematria 72. Kushanik Nesses Be'ima. Now, with this 72, with this, it's a chavaya written like this. It says to get your mind around the idea. We're dealing with letters. Creation is coming through, from our perspective, down in the physical world, through letters. So when it comes into Ima, then are formed up inside of Ima four mochin that are going to come to Zeranpin. Gamoshe Bir a Rab Lukamon, like the rabbi said, is going to say later on, Eich min Havaya the Av, how is it that you take this Havaya the Av, which I said before is like it's 10 letters, Naasa Arba Mochin Dezah. How can you take 10 letters and form them up into the four mochin for Zeranpin? Kimin Yud Naasim Muach. So this is what he says like this. This is how you understand it. There are four mochin. Chochma Bina, Elsadim, and Gavurus the Das. So he said, "Ki min yud na'asem mu'achach." Min the hay, the first hay, na'asem mu'ach bina. Min vav na'asem mu'ach chesed. Min hay achrona na'asem mu'ach gevura. So those are the mochim. And he says that's how this happens. Kol arba mochim elu nekroyim shisha kitzvos the gadlos the ima. They're called the 6 kitzvos. That is the chesed gevura teferes and that's a chol yisod of the godless of Ima, but this is godless. This is a tremendously high level of recognition or orientation. So Niknasim is their anpin, and they go into their anpin b'tevis echad when you say the word echad. Now, let me read through this part again. So he said, first of all, ki min yud, and he told you that once again that the yud is written out. This is actually what appears. Na'asem mu'ach chochma. So from that Yud Vav Dal, which is Gematria 20, doesn't mean anything to me particularly, but it makes the mu'ach chochma. Then you have the next mu'ach of min yud. So then you have the from the hey, but it's spelled hey yud, which is a Gematria 15. Na'asem mu'ach bina. So then he said min vav yud vav, and again he's spelling this out with it's called the milui of yudin. Na'asem mu'ach chesed. And hey achronin, from that again with the milui of yudin, achronin asemuch gevuros, gevura. V'kol arba mochim elu nekroyim shisha kitzvos the godless the ima. Now you understand how from the letters themselves, the 10 letters, are appropriated in such a way that they become mochim, 4 mochim. And then we say elu nekroyim shisha kitzvos the godless the ima. But as they come into Zer Anpin, they're called the shisha kitzvos, the godless of Ima. Haniknasim bezer anpin, which come into zer anpin. But tevis echad, when you say this word, which is the button, that does what? So he said, but tevis echad. So this ultimately brings, when you say the word echad, any time that you're saying the Kriat Shemah, he's going to say that later. And another shir we'll see a little bit later. He's going to tell us that always you get the vok of that's called the vav kitzvos of the godless of Ima come into Zeranpin. But before these mochin come in, shehem ashisha kitzvos the godless the Ima, which are the vav of the godless of Ima. Before that, lidmor The Kane Bazaar called the mochin the katnas. Before that can happen, though, all of the mochin the katnas must come in. So we're talking about the development of a desire for answers. So the ultimate desire for answers, this is the way I understand mochin the katnas, is to bring godless and to inform it and to make it whole. So here we have a little bit more. Well, this I think we have number iron test still. Okay, we'll do the iron test. V'chein b'kriya shema de karbanos tzrichin the kavod b'tevis echad. So therefore, when we give the kriya shema de karbanos, then we have to have this kavana. The kavana will be on the word echad. Sheneknase b'zah halamed mem de katas de abba. The lamed mem are the makifim. So he says that when you say this word echad, then the lamed mem, that the kifim of abba come in. Hachaser lo b'tevis Yisrael, which were missing, and they were not there. Those mochin of continence were not there. Imashisha kitzvos the godless, and it brings those in. That is the makifim, which are called the lamed and the mem, the continence, the abba. Imashisha kitzvos the godless, with the 6 kitzvos of godless. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this has been the shir on the Kriat Shemah as we continue on to see all the different insights.